Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world, with me, Deepika, coming up in the next 30 minutes. First, Tejas Mk-1A from Nashik completes maiden flight, gets water cannon salute. Defence Minister says 65% of defence equipment now manufactured domestically. Kremlin says many questions need resolving before Putin meets his US counterpart, as Trump says the two leaders will meet in around 2 weeks in Hungary after phone call with the Russian president. Madagascar's coup leader Colonel Randrianirina sworn in as the president. Good evening to all the viewers joining us at this evening broadcast. To begin with the latest, Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday. She is on an official 3-day visit to India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended a warm welcome to her, saying the visit would impart fresh momentum to the historic and multifaceted India-Sri Lanka ties. He recalled his state visit to Sri Lanka in April, highlighting fruitful talks with President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka, covering all areas of cooperation. The two leaders discussed strengthening cooperation in education, technology, innovation, development and welfare of fishermen. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to the shared development journey and conveyed warm wishes to President Dissanayake, looking forward to continued engagement. Sri Lankan Prime Minister later visited IIT Delhi, engaging with students, faculty and startups. The visit focused on strengthening research collaboration between IIT Delhi and Sri Lankan institutions. IIT Delhi also extended an invitation for more Sri Lankan students to pursue studies on its campus.
To try and see how we could strengthen our collaboration. IIT Delhi has already done some work with Sri Lankan universities, and since we also have set ourselves ambitious targets in education and in the IT sector, I'm looking at ways to consolidate the relationship. We discussed how we can continue to maintain the good relations that we have established. He asked me about my visit to India and what I have done, and we are going to meet again this evening, so it was a good conversation.
Minister of Foreign Affairs of Egypt, Dr. Badr Abdelati, who is on a 2-day visit to India, called on Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday. Prime Minister Modi conveyed warm congratulations to President Sisi for Egypt's crucial role in Gaza peace agreement and expressed hope it would lead to lasting peace in the region. Foreign Minister Abdelati briefed Prime Minister Modi on the first India-Egypt strategic dialogue being held during his visit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed satisfaction at the progress in bilateral cooperation, including trade, technology, energy, defence and people-to-people ties. Permanent representative of India to the Conference on Disarmament, Ambassador Anupam Ray, addressed the general debate at the first committee of the 80th session of the UNGA in New York. The ambassador reaffirmed India's commitment to its strict no first use nuclear doctrine and stated that any nuclear escalation would originate from Pakistan. Take a listen.
India has a no first use doctrine. India will not use nuclear weapons first. If there is any nuclear escalation, it will be by Pakistan. My distinguished colleague has omitted to mention that India has a nuclear armed neighbor that is the epicenter of global terrorism. India will firmly face up to threats, including state-sponsored cross-border terrorism under a nuclear overhang. My distinguished colleague has also not mentioned that Pakistan has sought bailouts from the International Monetary Fund 24 times. Pakistan is using your money, our money, to export terrorism and instability.
Germany's economy has long suffered under high energy prices and other effects of the Ukraine conflict. But these days, the government sees the current tense climate as an economic chance too. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and joins me from Berlin. Good evening, Lars. How is the problematic current environment helping Germany?
Thanks for having me. Well, it might, because very simply, Germany had to rethink its spending habits. Just about half a year ago, the then new government put together two investment packages. One that we've often talked about is a 500 billion euro package to be invested in general infrastructure. That is obviously a boon to the economy, as it supports the building or the improved maintenance of roads and railways and bridges and the grid. So there's a lot of jobs there. But the other package, also worth a whopping 500 billion euros, was intended to strengthen Germany's military. It was giving the defense department more money to invest in tanks, jets, ammunition, even personnel too, of course. This kind of investment obviously being a direct result of Russia invading Ukraine and of the US scaling down their commitment to NATO and to the Western alliance in general. And Germany, much like other European and NATO countries, had to up its military spending, but it's becoming ever more clear that it's also helping the economy in general.
But this all suggests that the growth is mostly in heavy industries. Is that a problem?
No, not really. Growth seems to be spreading indeed. We're also seeing some startups now going into the military sector, not least for the simple reason that if you're looking for investors, if you're looking for capital, anything that ties you to defense right now can be helpful. One example here, the food startup Good Bites is building automated store kitchens for customers to order freshly cooked meals. But now they're also working on a fully automated field kitchen to supply to the military. So lots of companies are really trying to get in on this new level of defense spending. And this is why the 500 billion euro investment by the government into this field will definitely have a huge impact on the economy, including outside the classic defense sector companies.
All right. Thank you so much, Lars, for joining us and getting us the latest. Moving on. Hamas has reaffirmed its commitment to the Gaza ceasefire deal and the return of all remaining hostage bodies, but said the process may take time due to rubble and destroyed tunnels. Under the truce brokered by US President Donald Trump, Hamas returned 20 hostages and the remains of 9 others in exchange for Israel, releasing nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and halting its military campaign. Israel has warned it may resume the conflict Hamas fails if they do so to fulfill its obligations. The UN World Food Programme said on Friday it has delivered an average of 560 tons of food daily to Gaza since the ceasefire, but that amount remains below what is needed. World Food Programme spokesperson Abir Itifa said access to northern Gaza, especially the Gaza city, remains challenging due to closed crossings and damaged roads.
Ceasefire went into effect on the 11th of October. We had around like 230 in the vicinity of this number of trucks that has carried around 2,800 tons of food supplies crossed into Gaza. This number is as of 15th of October. And they don't include the numbers from yesterday because we have to tally the numbers by midday the following day. So with a daily average of around 560 tons of food every day, we're still below what we need, but we're getting there.
US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin agreed on Thursday to hold another summit on the Ukraine conflict. Trump said he would meet Russian President Putin in Hungary after a telephonic conversation with Putin on Thursday. Talking to the media in the Oval Office, the US President said the call, the first with Putin since mid-August, was very productive, adding that teams from Washington and Moscow will meet next week. The Kremlin confirmed plans for the meeting, though neither of the sides provided a date for when would it occur.
Pretty quick. Marco Rubio is going to be meeting with his counterpart, as you know, Lavrov, and they'll be meeting pretty soon. They're going to set up a time and a place very shortly. Maybe it's already set up. They've already spoken. And I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. Tomorrow I'm meeting with President Zelensky, and I'll be telling him about the call.
Meanwhile, Kremlin said the Russian president told Trump that supplying U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine would harm the peace process and damage the U.S.-Russia ties. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov told the reporters that a planned new summit between the two presidents will be preceded by a phone call between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in the upcoming days. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky met the U.S. government officials and defense companies' representatives in Washington, D.C. on Friday. He and his delegation held meeting with U.S. Department of Energy Secretary Chris Wright and representatives from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. Zelensky was headed to the White House on Friday to push for more military support, including U.S.-made long-range Tomahawk missiles. Meanwhile, a Kremlin envoy has proposed building a Putin-Trump rail tunnel under the Bering Strait to link Russia and the U.S., promote joint resource exploration and symbolize unity. Kirill Dmitriev, head of Russia's RDIF Sovereign Wealth Fund, suggested the $8 billion 70-mile project be funded by Moscow and international partners and completed within 8 years. The proposal came after a call between President Putin and Trump ahead of their planned summit in Budapest aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. Moving on, Madagascar's new military ruler, Colonel Randrianirina, sworn in as the president on Friday after the military took power in the island nation this week following youth-led protests that forced Andrei to flee. The High Constitutional Court performed the swearing-in ceremony of the new president. Andrei, whom the lawmakers impeached after he fled abroad at the weekend, has condemned the takeover and refused to step down despite widespread defections in the security forces. Colonel Randrianirina said earlier that the military had taken power and dissolved all institutions except the lower house of the parliament or the National Assembly. He also said that a committee led by the military would rule for up to 2 years alongside a transitional government before organizing new elections. You're watching DD India Live, and now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world in brief. King Charles has commemorated a key milestone in Aboriginal land rights, joining traditional owners of Ulurakata Juta to mark 40 years since the Australian government returned the title deeds of the national park to the Anangu people. An indigenous delegation travelled to London for the historic anniversary. An explosion at an 8-story apartment building in Romania's capital, Bucharest, collapsed floors on Friday. The blast broke windows at a nearby high school and caused 2 floors to collapse, damaging others. At least 2 people were killed and 12 injured as rescue teams searched for anyone trapped. Sudden and intense hailstorm caught residents in southern Bolivia by surprise. The storm, which lasted about 30 minutes, occurred in Tarija, a city near the border with Argentina, flooding streets and leaving people sweeping away piles of hailstones. Cameras from the United States Geological Survey on Thursday captured Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupting again, prompting lava to flow from its crater. According to the website, Kilauea is one of the world's most active volcanoes and has been erupting periodically since December the 23rd last year. Time to take a short break, but still to come on the other side. In a short while from now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to talk about wide range of issues pertaining to India's development strides in recent years at NDTV World Summit. And after the break, we'll get you more details on Fit India's upcoming 2 cycling expeditions under the banner Iron Wheels of Unity.
Prepare for the brightest night of the year. Story of Diwali and its diversity. It's time for the Festival of Lights.
There's so many invaluable artifacts that the British have taken from our country. They robbed us of our self-respect. They robbed us of our honor. Loot was never innocent, it was painful.
The word loot, that was stolen from India too.
Welcome back after that short break. You're watching DD India Live. Well, President Draupadi Murmu attended the National Conclave on Adi Karma Yogi Abhiyan in New Delhi, organized by India's Tribal Affairs Ministry under the vision of Vikasit Bharat, focusing on the Tribal Village Vision 2030 and nationwide village action plans for inclusive development. This initiative aligns with the Sustainable Development Goals, emphasizing tribal empowerment and grassroots development, while also exploring opportunities in the carbon credits market and voluntary offset market. Addressing the gathering, the President said this Adi Karma Yogi Abhiyan has been launched with a transformative vision to ensure that every tribal village becomes self-reliant and prospers with dignity. She added that the goal is to ensure that the tribal community actively participates in development journey of the nation.
आदि कर्मयोगी अभियान इस परिवर्तनकारी सोच के साथ शुरू किया गया है कि प्रत्येक आदिवासी गांव आत्मनिर्भर और स्वाभिमानी बने। इस अभियान के माध्यम से ये सुनिश्चित करना है कि राष्ट्र के विकास की यात्रा में आदिवासी समुदाय की भी भागीदारी हो और विकास का लाभ भी सभी आदिवासी क्षेत्रों और लोगों तक पहुंचे।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address the NDTV World Summit in a short while from now, where global leaders, innovators and cultural icons have gathered for high-level dialogue. In his keynote speech, Prime Minister is expected to highlight India's recent development milestones and also share insights on country's growth trajectory. Moving on to Bangladesh, where the much-anticipated July National Charter was signed on Friday at the South Plaza of the National Parliament building in Dhaka in what the interim administration called a historic step towards national reconciliation. Chief Advisor Professor Mohammad Yunus signed the charter on behalf of the interim government, joined by several political leaders. The charter aims to guide democratic reforms, ensure justice for victims of state violence, and lay groundwork for national elections. The ceremony was overshadowed by violent protests and political boycotts. Earlier in the day, July fighters clashed with police near the parliament, demanding recognition and welfare measures. The National Citizen Party, which led the 2024 July movement, boycotted the event, accusing the government of hiding the charter's contents. Several left-leaning parties also called the move non-inclusive. Despite the unrest, Professor Yunus called the signing a milestone for democracy and unity, promising to review protesters' concerns. On to sports now. Fit India will organize 2 cycling expeditions under the banner Iron Wheels of Unity from 31st of October to commemorate the 150th birth anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. The Kashmir to Kanyakumari cycling expedition will cover a mammoth distance of 4,480 kilometers, beginning in Srinagar, Jammu and Kashmir, and culminating in Kanyakumari, Tamil Nadu on the 16th of November. A total of 150 riders will participate in this initiative. Mountaineer Nisha Kumari, who cycled from India to London to spread the message of change before climate change, will spearhead the K2K expedition. Another expedition called Pedal to Plant will cover a distance of 4,000 kilometers, starting from Pangsau in Arunachal Pradesh and culminating in Mundra, Gujarat on the 31st of December this year. Along the route, cyclists will plant 100,000 saplings and conduct climate and fitness awareness sessions at schools and colleges. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download it right now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Deepika, and from all of us here in New Delhi, festive greetings to all our viewers. Thank you so much for joining us right now. Namaskar.